allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So Greg, Brad, and Brett are not present.
Correct.
We do not have the July 7th minutes. We have the July 21 minutes. Does everyone have those minutes?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So we'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You have to note that 7-7 is not here because you're reading 7-7, we're only approving 7-21.
Say that again?
We're only approving 7-21 minutes.
Right.
And it's, the minutes show 7-7, so.
Well, I wasn't here then, but,
Okay,
Right,
so
we don't have the 7-7.
So we don't have
Okay.
them, yeah.
I just want to make it clear so somebody will look at that and then find out we approve something else. Okay.
yeah, thank you.
So there is a Board of Ed report, however.
I'll just talk about the project.
Yeah,
A little
I'm gonna
bit.
do that, yeah.
Okay.
What I know about the projects,
Yep.
I talked to Jan Pruccio yesterday. The track is going down right now. We're looking at a ribbon cutting probably the week of the 21st, September 21st. Well, I don't need to say
Perfect
more.
timing.
Guys are here. Yay.
I was just talking and giving a little Board of Ed project update, but I will leave
Oh,
that.
good. We can chime in.
No, you can
pick up right where
We're
Not
excited.
even pick up, you can take over.
One of the reasons we were late is we stopped by Goodwin to take a look at the windows that started going in today. So the
Nice.
whole front wing, as you face the building on the right, all the glass is in except for the doors. And that just happened between
Today?
yesterday afternoon and today.
Wow.
So they're moving really quickly on that. So these are just popping in the panes of glass into the frames that have already been put in place. So that's exciting. Masonry's done. The frames are in, the heating units still, there's work to be done there. And as expected, although they seem to be moving along really well and weather seems to be moving in the right direction, but as expected, we will have some work to do after school starts. We knew that though. But what we did is Julie worked on the phasing with the architect and the builder so that a lot of that work isn't going to impact classrooms. The D wing may be impacted, we knew that. But they'll be working in the office, the gymnasium, the kitchen area on glass after that, so the kids won't feel the impact.
I want to jump in just for a minute. So we have a window project going on here in August of 2015. At least 2 years ago, reading in the newspaper, Glastonbury, Weathersfield, I don't know what other schools where they were doing work on whether it's windows or roofs, PCBs were in the caulking and all that stuff. And I think it's at least 2 years ago, it's gotta be 2.5 years ago. It adds 3 million to the forget it. It'll grind it to a halt and you're done. If you find, because the EPA controls the PCB levels, what I understand, not even the DEEP. And as a result of that, and the levels, I've talked to some environmental engineers and they're like, the levels are ridiculous that they set them at. They're too low, they're too easy to hit. So we had Mystic Air, even way before I think it came to this board, but just in terms of planning for bad things, we had Mystic Air go in there and do all the testing. They did not find PCBs, thankfully. And therefore there was no stoppage of the project. But that's the type of thing that Julie and I were both looking at a long time ago, way before this project was even before the public. Because if that test came back positive, I don't know how much, that would have been a separate project before we did the windows, maybe, And so, anyway, I just wanted to interrupt because that's part of it. That's how we got here.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
The groundwork, yeah, that was important. Anything else on the window project?
No, we're meeting tomorrow. I'll have an updated schedule. We've been sending out updates regularly, so hopefully the glass went in so quickly. So our next shipment comes on the 24th, and the expectation is it'll all be in the classroom areas before the 31st. So we'll be ready to roll. We'll make it happen,
So
I
when school
think.
starts the 31st?
First.
We, actually, the model that we used to deal with our concerns about the turf field over the last year of communicating on a regular basis with families, with staff, we've just adopted that model for these other two projects, and it's been great, so we don't have staff panicking about when they can get in. They know when wings become available, and that's true for the middle school project too. At the last building meeting for that, they told us that they would have the roof buttoned up, watertight, by the 22nd, which was what the contract asked them to do. They were working over the gymnasium this morning, I noticed, and they will still have, even when school starts, they'll still have some flashing work to do and tying some things down on the roof. But we've asked them to do that work, especially if it's going to be either noisy or have any odors from glues and things, after school hours or on weekends. And so far, both of the companies working on these projects have been, the general contractors have been terrific, and the architect has been very responsive.
Yeah, they've been great.
Anything else on roof?
Are they working nights and weekends?
They're working weekends.
And they've been working later, like our window contractor has been there weekends and worked till 5 or 6 o'clock on weekdays. They've really put in the hours. They knew the timeline was so tight, and they made it happen. I tell you,
Great.
they've been so responsive, really, really good. We're very fortunate.
And we've had great weather. So
Yeah.
let's hope that continues. The turf track tennis court project continues to be an interesting project, but it's an interesting project that's coming to a close. So if you haven't had an opportunity, go on the school district's website. There's a Twitter feed, and there are some drone pictures of the turf as it was being laid. The gentleman who lives next door to the high school is licensed, and he has a company, and so he called me and said, I'm going to do a couple of things, and he took some great pictures of them placing the ram in the middle of the field. There's one that goes from goalpost to goalpost. It's a lot of fun to view. So they were just buttoning up today. I went up there early in the morning. Julie went up later, and they were doing a little bit more of the infill, but mostly getting ready to clear out and demobilize for the turf, which means the tennis court begins. And I'm sorry, the track begins. Thank you.
That's okay.
The track begins, and they're mobilizing and moving everything into place and getting that going. 2 to 3 weeks on that, 3 weeks on that. And so hoping for a ribbon cutting the 3rd week of September. That may not mean that we won't play games on it till then. We probably will if all goes well. But looking maybe into the 3rd week for a ribbon cutting. So we'll let you know about that. And certainly invite you to attend that. And then the tennis court, that's what's been interesting lately. We have been asking the general contractor and even the tennis court subcontractor, and they've been trying to get the folks who put the top coating down to fix some of the things that we were concerned about. Eventually it just got to the point where there was an agreement that they were going to resurface that whole thing, which was terrific. So for us, we were thrilled with that response. But things have not necessarily gone as smoothly as we'd like it to. And so you have the subcontractor dealing with the coating guys, who was a sub of a sub, and dealing with the issues there until, now it's reached a point where they can't agree on the best way to resolve the issue. And so that's sort of stopped over the last 48 hours. We anticipate tomorrow, or at least by Friday, when the turf project meeting takes place, that there'll be some action moving forward, telling them you're either going to do this or we'll take next steps. So nothing about that has been easy, but the good news is that the forward momentum is there. Things are getting done. We have a lot of faith. Julie's worked before with the folks doing the track, so we have a lot of faith that is going to move forward well, as long as the weather continues to be on our side. And we're just so happy to be seeing this come to an end.
The one good thing that I think we should leave at least this project with is the tennis court contractor. So the one sub that's doing that is very, very responsive.
Very hard.
And he has sat at the table and assured us that come, H or high water, he will make sure that it's done right, and it will be done on time for the start of school, and make sure that surface is right. So he's very responsible, very receptive, and has been very cooperative, and that's a positive for sure.
Yep, that's
Great.
true.
What did they do with the surface? What happened? Exactly.
They're not sure what happened exactly. There's
Okay.
a number of theories out there about temperature and adhesives, and that's part of the discussion that's
Okay.
going on right now. And all we're saying is, you guys can work that out, can you just get it redone? And as Julie said, the company that put the courts in, not the surfacing company, they're really pushing hard to get this done. We feel a real sense of anxiety and responsibility about it, which is nice to see.
I've mentioned before about an overseer or clerk of the works for these large programs, since neither one of you, I believe, are engineers, and follow these things like an engineer would. But in fact, other than the neighbor you talked about that took a couple photographs, do we have photo documentation of either of these major products at the Goodwin School, the middle school, and high
Yep,
school?
yep.
So it's been photographed on a
Yep.
regular
Yeah,
basis?
so we take photographs every time we go.
The engineer
The
does.
engineer takes photographs and he includes them in his weekly report. He does the walkthroughs of the
Field.
site, and he takes pictures.
So you have those in case you need them for any kind
Absolutely.
of legal
Yeah.
action in the future?
We have a number of photos all been archived.
That's great.
And the architect on the window and roof projects has been on site nearly every day.
Mhm.
So he's our clerk of the works, quite honestly. He's got a lot of field experience in addition to being, I think, a very qualified architect. He has done a lot of his own test holes for roof cuts and things like that. So he's very experienced, knows what to look for, is up on that roof, is at the Goodwin School, walking through, checking the windows out, working with the contractor, having communication every day.
Which roof is he on?
The middle
The
school.
middle school.
Right, so he's representing his company at the middle school and at the Goodwin School?
He's the architect on both projects.
Architect, okay.
Yeah, so he's our agent.
Yep.
You know, to the point about clerk of the works, when that was brought up, both here and at the 3T meeting, the turf meeting committee, and at the board meeting, we did ask the attorney that we've been working with on that issue about hiring, and he said at that point, at that juncture, when the problems already started, that would be ill-advised, because then you'd be adding yet another personality into the whole mix, and it would be better to ask the engineer to step up and do additional supervision, you know, with the pictures and the weekly walkthroughs. We've been getting that. And we each have binders, 2 binders this big on the whole project, so lots and lots of data.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And can that be presented to us at some point, like a PowerPoint presentation, a quick overview of some of the work that was done there, when you get ready to present that to us?
Some of the work that was done on the 3T
Well,
project.
the windows,
specific-
because
oh,
I
sure.
personally have viewed the
photos?
old windows, the old heaters, the leaky kitchen windows
Sure.
at the middle school, and et cetera, and the roof leaking at the middle school in the auditorium, and I've been out to the high school up on the roof.
Mhm.
So I took the time to go out and do that, so I'd like to see some of the finished results.
Yeah, maybe we could
Absolutely.
either put something together with the Board of Ed or present something to them and to the Board of
Sure.
Finance to see it.
PowerPoint,
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Any more questions? Is there any
question? In the paper a couple of weeks ago, it explained somewhat the situation you had for a principal. Mr. Sutman took over from Sheila Brown,
Mhm.
and you hired a replacement for Mr. Sutman. What is her capacity? What's her pay? What was the contract? And when will the contract end? And what are your plans going forward for that position?
So Mr. Sutman took over as interim principal at Goodwin School. And in replacing him is an interim curriculum director, curriculum professional development and assessment director. Her contract is a 1-year contract, and it ends at the end of the academic year. She is paid the entry pay for that title in the collective bargaining agreement. They're part of a collective bargaining unit. So she's paid about $130,000 for the year for her work, but her contract does end at the end of the academic year. Now, if there are multiple openings, everyone can apply and go through the hiring process as we run all of our hiring processes, which includes all the stakeholders, Board of Ed, parents, teachers, administrators, community members, or they may choose not to, she may choose not to do that.
So you're not increasing the director of curriculum position from 2 to 3 going forward?
No.
It will always stay at 2?
Director of curriculum is one person,
Well, it was one person before.
right?
Mr. Sutman became a temporary superintendent. Then when he left that position, it became 2, at the same salary level.
No,
Of course,
No,
it's
one.
the same.
no.
It's
No,
the
you wait.
special ed
The
director.
special, the pupil personnel director was at one time 2. It is now 1, and it will remain that. There's no plans to increase positions at all,
Okay,
not at all. Mm-mm.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's the end of my question.
Is there anything that you want to or can say about the administrator contract negotiations? And I know that you have another meeting tomorrow night.
Right, yeah. We've had 2. The first one was a bump and run. We set dates and ground rules. We've had one since then, and proposals were exchanged, and we'll have another tomorrow. And I would imagine we'll be doing counter proposals.
Okay. If anyone would like to attend that meeting tomorrow night, it's at 6:30. Any other questions? Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. We'll see you soon.
Yes, you will.
Okay.
All right. Agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment?
I'm just here in case you wanted to ask any questions about the harbor management fund.
Thank you. Finance Director report.
Obviously.
Do you want to talk about this?
No, that's on the agenda.
Oh, that's on, oh, that's further down, sorry. Oh, that's the next thing.
Yeah. This, I found this in my inbox one day, and it's $2,000 to help us, and it's a neglected cemetery grant. And I know John's on one of the cemetery committees. $2,000, it can only be, it's only one $2,000 grant. It's not, because we have these 3 cemeteries, we can get 6,000. So we're gonna apply for the grant for one of the cemeteries to do something.
Which cemetery, you picked it out?
No, I think every cemetery could use some work, whether it's fencing or paving or, so we're just gonna apply for the grant. I think we talked about some of the road work, maybe down, it's a Cypress. But that's what Lisa and I initially talked about. So anyway, it's a grant, it's $2,000. I didn't even look if it's a reimbursable grant, but I assume it is a reimbursable grant. We spend it and then we get money back. If we do that, it has to go through Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. Board of Selectmen already approved it. And so we're asking you to make that appropriation of $2,000 so we can get this grant. And by the way, the grant is first come, first serve. And this came in last week, so I'm hopeful it's still there, even if you approve it, that there's some funds left. Because
How would you decide which cemetery is good? Because you're gonna apply, you have to apply for one, right? Does it matter?
we're just gonna choose one, Barry.
But you don't have to choose one in the
You know, I didn't
application
look,
process.
Lisa, I gave Lisa the grant, I
Just
said,
list all three.
please look into it,
Yeah.
so,
Okay. Cypress up to
She already did it.
She already did it.
Here's the
Okay, so,
application
yeah.
right here.
so,
She listed them all.
quite frankly, I didn't even look at it.
So,
Says all 3 are gonna be performed work.
Yeah, well, it leaves our options open, so,
Well, she's got it right at the bottom.
yeah,
I should
okay?
write Cypress Cemetery and.
So I'd ask that you guys move that appropriation so that we can get it in tomorrow
I'll make a
morning.
motion to move.
$2,000,
$2,000,
$2,000 appropriation for the neglected cemetery grant.
is there a second?
I don't need to take up the motion.
All right.
Who seconded that?
John,
Okay, and Barry did the.
is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Treasurer's report.
Okay. I have given you a treasurer's report for the new fiscal year through July 31st. As far as the old one is concerned, 14-15, I brought you up to date back on late July of where I was and told you that I would have a final set of data early in September. And That's still the case. Lisa is now working on all of the accounts payable for me to add to the things I gave you the last time. So I'm not going to talk about that anymore tonight unless you have some specific questions about the thing I gave you the last time. For the new fiscal year, if you look at the expenditures, the general government shows 14% expended. That's because we have a lot of things that we do early that are one-time things. And in particular, the entire 4295 line item, which is $655,000, we have transferred all of that already out of the budget and into the municipal reserve fund and a couple of the non-budget accounts where those monies belong. Okay, so that's the reason it looks high. And the same thing is true of bonded indebtedness payments. We have in the past deliberately scheduled bond payments in July and August. And the reason we have done that is so that we didn't have to pay any bond payments in the previous fiscal year. That's generally what happens. You come up with a new program, you go out for a bond issue, and you decide that what you'll do is just spend as little money as possible in the fiscal year, which isn't in the budget. And then so you schedule your new payments in July and August. So that's why that happens.
Can I ask you a question on non-budget accounts?
Sure.
What are the responsibilities of the Board of Finance, if at all? Do we have any responsibilities or say-so concerning non-budget accounts, where the money comes from, or how they use the money during the course of a year? Is there any transparency to the usage of non-budget accounts to the public or to the board?
Well, I think so. I try to give you a detailed look at those at least once a year and try to explain to you how the money got there and how it's going to be spent. I think you have a right, if one of those things bothers you, to ask more information and make comments about how it is being spent.
Well, I guess every department, well, not every department, I don't know if that's the true statement, but a lot of departments have off-budget accounts.
Yes.
How they get the money is unknown in lots of instances. What covenants restrict the money, if any, are unknown in many times to us. And I was wondering if there's any, I don't know, way of getting some delineation per department, per the non-budget account formation.
Yes, you could. When we go through that list of accounts, and I'll bring them out again anytime you want me to, we'll go through them again, and if there's any that you want more information on, we'll just call people in to give you that information.
Well, the reason I ask is 6 or 7 months ago, when we were in the budget process, Brad made, I thought, a very good suggestion on the budget process itself, especially for youth and family services, where he said, when we discussed youth and family services, they had a lot of income coming in, and the numbers we received on the budget were not their total expenses, and they had income in addition to the tax monies that were given them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a very good question and a good format to use going forward.
That's a unique department, though, in that sense, in that they're getting, and I understand your question, but I think that's a unique department in that they provide insurance services and they get paid insurance monies. I think for that department, it's a very interesting question. I don't know that there is another department where someone is taxed $1. Bob Fish is taxed on his house, and the revenues are applied to the expenditures.
In the budget process.
Exactly.
I understand the
Okay, yeah.
tax portion of it. It's the offline that I don't
Okay.
understand.
So some of the offline items, and we're going to talk about the Harbor Management Fund in a second.
That's one.
That's why I bring it up now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The Harbor Management Fund, I mean, I don't want to say everything's unique, is also unique. I think because there are some state regs and some local ordinances that apply to that. Whereas I don't know that there's a state reg or local ordinance that applies to police funds that might be off budget. And I'm not saying your question is off base or wrong or anything.
Well, I think the police funds have some as well.
Have
You know,
some
you got a fund, you got.
have some what? I didn't-
Have offline budgets.
They
so
do.
You don't know, you know, you got money, all of a sudden I realize that you're getting money for the golf carts running around town
Yep.
that are used, so what regulates that and what comes, how much they get in and where they
And
spend
they get
it?
money back from tickets that are written. I don't know.
I know,
the
but we'd like to
formula.
understand that whole flow, because
Uh-huh.
when you're paying for something, somebody's getting a paycheck based on performing a service in the police department.
But
So
someone's
is that
getting.
separate from the normal budget, or?
No, that's what I'm saying. The expenditures in the budget are directly related to the mill rate. Okay, and I know you know that. So there's none of that going on. How the money ultimately is spent is, you know, you have a legal line item. It's all, you know, maybe you want to get a legal opinion on that, right? You guys still have that, yeah. You didn't get 25,000 like you wanted, John.
No, but in the past, we have, and I'm talking about the far past, not the near past, we used to do a lot of work with the Board of Finance on exactly this question. And they made decisions on which things they were willing to live with as off budget, which on budget. Maybe we should go through that process again.
I think that'd be very helpful, Bob, because I think you got a lot of questions.
Yeah, and Carl's right about youth and family services. There seems to be a lot of overlap, and that's your concern, the overlap that doesn't have a lot of transparency. In the case of youth and family services, a lot of it is associated with an attempt to maintain confidentiality. That's why that one comes up in particular, because you're talking about names of people and particular insurance claims being made for processing.
Could be medical reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot of areas there where we don't really want transparency, and that may contribute to the case of the Youth and Family Services. But in other cases, why we do something off budget versus budget is something that in the past was determined by the Board of Finance. We can go through that again.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we can, and it's hard for me to think of something. I mean, some of the stuff that's off budget is off budget because it might be a one-time expense, and you don't want to put it in the mill rate.
The main reason is because the revenue comes from someplace other than taxation.
Right.
So it doesn't
It
belong.
does, but you know, one case we took when all of a sudden the police bought a car. We're looking at car budgets for on our general budget, and all of a sudden, out of some fund, the car comes and pops in. But once that car's there, we're supporting that car. Those are the kind of things I'd be concerned about.
Well, I think it's also important that if the taxpayer, if you say, here's a department and it costs $1,000 to run that department, and $1,000 is in the budget, you say, oh, it's only $1,000. But if they have revenue of $1,000 that they use, it really costs $2,000 to run that department, right?
You mean if they have another off-budget account with
Right.
$1,000?
They have
Yes.
a- Right,
Correct.
so it's not as transparent as it should be.
Well, that's right, but recognize that off-budget revenue shouldn't be in one of the budgeted categories.
I understand that.
Okay.
You're still using revenue to run that.
But if
department.
you use it, if it falls to the bottom line, fine, like the golf course, right?
Yeah.
But if they're using it to run the department, 100% of that revenue, it's not, then the amount of money it costs to run that department is not what's
Okay.
indicated in the
Well,
budget.
this is where we need to go through it again, because in general, off-budget things are not being used to pay the personnel.
Right.
running the
Operating
department.
expenses.
Right, exactly. We try to put operating expenses in the budget, and the other things have special programs with special revenues. And I can tell you that every audit season, one of the first things I do is prepare what's called a GASB 54 chart for the auditors. It tells you where the revenue comes from all non-budget funds.
Okay.
And that in your book of financial statements,
Okay.
when you look at schedules 4 and 5, those are all the off-budget programs. That's where you'll see what kind of revenue is supporting those programs. But we can go through it in more detail when we have in the past.
Go through it, but I think everybody here understands, I mean, there's a reason and
Exactly.
for not putting it in
Right.
the operating budget, because the mill rate would be a lot higher than it is. And it's not used for operating expenses. so,
Correct.
anyway.
Okay.
But, good question.
Yes, Bob. Okay, on the revenue side of this report, the number that you see here for taxes, current year and taxes other years, you notice that we've already received more than half of the taxes that we expected for the year, our budget. The advanced revenues are in here now, and I also put July 31st receipts in here, even though it wasn't deposited until August 1st, because that was part of the month of collections. If anything, the taxes are coming in slightly heavier than they did last year, which is great, because last year was a good year for tax collections. State of Connecticut, as usual, shows nothing in July. That's quite typical. And well, all I can say about local revenues is that the mini golf is setting records for revenue.
That's great.
I don't know if you've gone by there during the day lately. It's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay?
Any other questions for Bob on this report?
One question.
Yeah.
Do you have an extra report?
Here, I have one.
I do too. I have
There's one over
extra-
there, okay, thank you.
No, I have extra ones here.
That's it.
Well, everyone that was on time got one.
I was here. Everyone was 4 minutes before.
Only kidding. All right, thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Selectmen report?
Yes, sir.
All right, so this is, with, one of the issues is this harbor master reimbursement to the harbor master for $3,000 expense from the harbor management fund. That is something that I'll speak up. That is something that the Harbor Management Commission unanimously recommended at their last meeting, subsequent to a prior issue with them expending monies out of the Harbor Management Fund. It was brought to their attention, Board of Selectmen attention, that there may be regulations that govern the use of that fund that may be within the purview of the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. I don't know that it's crystal clear that every expenditure out of that harbor management fund has to go through Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. It's certainly not historically the way it has occurred. But until we have a crystal clear policy on it, this is probably a safer route, and it's something that the Harbor Management Commission voted on. And Mr. Guduti sits on the Harbor Management Commission. Is there anything you want to say about that? Anyway, the Board of Selectmen did recommend a payment out of, not an appropriation, Lisa corrected me on that, a payment out of the Harbor Management Fund. And we recommended that the Board of Finance take it up.
Out of their budgeted amount.
Not their budgeted amount,
Their fund.
out of their harbor management. That's how how has the harbor master traditionally been paid? For his boat?
Traditionally, he's been paid out of the general fund,
Yeah, out of the budget.
out of the budget.
And then they moved it a couple years ago into the Harbor Management Commission Fund.
What happened was, many years ago, maybe 25, legislation was enacted. It gave the towns the opportunity to set up a harbor management fund. Harbor management fund went hand in hand with the harbor management plan. So they wrote a harbor management plan, but the driving force was that a lot of people, a lot of boaters were upset that boating money was coming out of the harbor and paving the roads on Main Street. And the thing that the harbor management plan did, and the legislation that caused it, was it said that money taken in from revenues produced by the harbor could only be used for the improvement and maintenance of the harbor. It also said that that money had to go into a fund, established a town fund. Okay. In essence, quite the opposite happened, and the harbor management fund grew and grew and grew and grew. And the reason it grew was this money wasn't coming, exactly the opposite that had been happening started happening. The town started paying for everything because harbor management was coming in with a budget. The budget was going against the general fund. The budget had payment of the lease of the boat. And the taxpayers, the Main Street paving, was now paying for the harbor. So we've been trying to nibble away at that, or I have at least, because the leasing of the boat was clearly identifiable with a harbor management activity, and it produced harbor management revenue because that boat's used to put the moorings in and out. So a few years ago, as I went through the budget process, I went through a list of things and I said, you know, this shouldn't be on the town side, this should be on the harbor management side. And there was general agreement there, and what happened was they never zeroed out the line item, so there continued to appear in the budget a line item, boat rental. But you couldn't find boat rental anywhere because in the budget process it had disappeared, and harbor management was just arbitrarily paying for that. We now stepped on and we got to the point where the harbor management fund, and this was something that greatly upset me, was used as a trump card in overriding the decision that the finance board made on the lease of the boat. And everybody was saying, oh, the harbor management plan calls for the safety of the harbor. So I went back and I started researching more, and I found out that the harbor management plan said a lot more. And one of the things that it said very, very clearly is that the town, that is the selectmen, the Board of Finance, and harbor management should be walking hand in hand down the street in this whole budget process. That's what I believe it says. Kyle has some question as to how much of that. Also found that there are town ordinances, and those town ordinances say that harbor management should be presenting a budget to the selectmen, to the Board of Finance, and finally to the people. And that budget should be showing revenue from the harbor and how it's going to be laid out. This has not been happening. The budget process has been very loose. There's been no oversight on how this harbor management money is being spent. And I feel personally that it's wrong, and I feel that someplace along the line, these things have to be ironed out between the selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Harbor Management Commission. The one thing that I am absolutely sure of is that somehow harbor management should be reporting their revenue. They should be showing how they're going to be spending the money, which to me is a budget item. And it should be okayed as a budget item. Because this is money that's being produced by a town resource. You know, it's not money they're picking up out here or out there. The people of the town are providing this money. So that's basically, and I'm sure Kyle can expand on that further. But if you read, I think, and you go through the harbor management plan, I'll give you this, quotes from the harbor management plan. Everywhere it talks about in the harbor management plan, it talks about this cooperative effort between the three bodies. And it also says that Chapter 8, Boards, Commissions, Article 11, Harbor Management Commission, to prepare an operating budget for the commission using funds from sources which may include but are not limited to local appropriations, mooring fees, violation fees, or harbor management fund established by the town. So I think all of that brings it right back into the broad budget process that you start every year and you end at the beginning of the summer.
So it's your opinion that the money for the harbor master should be paid for out of the harbor management off-budget account, but Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance should appropriate that off-budget money?
Well, we should see their budget.
Oh, I understand that.
It's my opinion that someplace, first of all, the poor guy's got to be paid.
Right.
Yeah. It's my opinion that someplace an agreement has to be reached between all the identities of just how they're going to use this harbor management money, and whether or not arbitrarily harbor management can spend the money without going through some sort of a budget oversight process on this revenue that they're bringing in.
I have a question. How much revenue per year approximately?
That's the whole point.
Well, approximately.
Okay. 50, Jerry?
Or a little more than that even, now.
50 a year.
It's not, you look at this astronomical amount of money that's in the harbor management fund. The reason that astronomical amount of money is in the harbor management fund is through the years, harbor management has not been spending their own money. And it's been the general fund that has been financing harbor management. So harbor management has been back there
Well-
building up this enormous fund.
Well, no, when you say financing harbor management, so the question is, should the taxpayer be paying the clerk and some of the expenses? So there is a budget for harbor management. What is it,
25.
about 25,000? So you're not suggesting that that entire 25,000 come out of the harbor management?
No, the
fund?
harbor management fund could never afford it.
Okay, all right, so that's fine. So there should be some expenses paid out of the general fund. However, any monies expended out of the harbor management fund, for instance, for Ferry Road dock, for dock repair, should go through the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. Right.
Because eventually you're gonna get to the point, you have two docks right now that have to be replaced.
Yeah.
Okay, harbor management is never going to produce enough revenue to replace those two docks. One is down here, one is still at Ferry Road. Harbor management just does not take in the amount of money that it takes to replace those docks. So at some point, there has to be a cooperative effort, because harbor management, to replace those docks, is going to have to come to the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and say, you know, we're gonna have to start putting some money away to replace these docks. And that money is just not going to come out. As lucrative as people think the North Cove anchorage is, it's really not that lucrative, because there's legislative restraints on how much the town can charge for mooring out there.
It's only
And that's
$200.
$200.
$200, yeah.
But in the same respect, it's unfair as can be to ask the people of the town to pay for this boat, which basically is used to drop these moorings in, which harbor management uses to produce funds. So, in my mind, it's very clear. It's not, I realize that I'm not making it clear in your mind. But what I'm saying is, tonight, I think that Board of Finance should approve taking $3,000 out of the harbor management fund and paying this poor guy the money that he was told he'd be paid. That's the point. The next thing that I think is important is it should be made clear to harbor management that as they go through the budget process next year, when Carl sends out his letter and says, get a budget together, that harbor management should be brought to the realization that they're going to have to show a complete budget. And that budget should show revenues and everything else. And first time around, it's going to be hard for all the parties, because I think, and you can change this, but what you're going to end up in is line items in the budget that have asterisks next to them. The asterisks meaning this is money that has to come out of the harbor management fund.
So when you say there's an astronomical amount of money in this fund, how much is in that fund?
$250,000?
300,000?
Yeah.
300,000.
And it's the Board of Selectmen's opinion that this payment should be, that we should authorize that payment? out of their?
Yes.
We should authorize them to spend that money, is what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
But in addition to that, what we're saying is, okay, if you're gonna do it for this tree, we ought to know what you're gonna do with the rest of that money throughout the year. If they plan on spending part of that 300,000, how much is gonna come in, and what's their future plans?
Right.
So we have an idea what that does, because we might have to appropriate money for something bigger.
Sure.
Or we might have them pay for something that's a little less that probably should be paid for by them.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, the thing that got me going on this was the damn lease on the boat. I don't think that harbor management funds should arbitrarily have been used after the Board of Finance said no. That's,
One point of clarification, just to make sure it's clear to everybody. The process for spending money in these off-budget accounts,
Right.
like that, goes through exactly the same process we do with the budget. Every week, a voucher is made up for every expenditure, and it is passed through the selectmen to approve it.
Right, but until now, it's never come to.
Not with the harbor management.
Exactly.
We've never had visibility on it. And I
I
think just the
understand
visibility is all we want.
I understand that, but it's not as if off-budget
Right.
funds are spent without going through our
Right.
process. Now, let's make that clear.
Can anybody in the process say, no, this is not?
Yeah.
can't
Yeah,
spend
that's
on
the
it"?
idea,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Uh,
The selectmen have to sign off on
And
every
every
one.
department.
Yep.
So just theoretically, the harbor management can say, we have $300,000. We don't want to buy a police boat, but we want to buy a boat, right, for whatever reason, we want to buy a boat. The harbor management says, we have 300,000, you can then say, no, you can't.
I cannot
The Board of
sign,
Selectmen.
I cannot sign the check,
Right.
essentially.
let's make it exaggerate the problem, and it's easier to understand. Because harbor management, in essence, is wet side zoning. Okay, as soon as you get to the high tide mark, zoning stops.
Right.
Harbor management arbitrarily, without consulting with anyone, the way it is now, arbitrarily, harbor management could take that $300,000 and they could say, we're gonna build a high-rise out here below the high water mark. And whether or not the people of the town want it or don't want it, harbor management would spend the
No,
money.
no, there's been very little oversight of that fund, there's no doubt about it.
But at the same time, years ago, when we got the grant for Ferry Road Dock,
Right.
the Board of Selectmen attempted, I think, to use some of that money.
We did
And
use
we
some
did
of that
use some of that.
Ultimately.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we did use some.
It ought to be part of the plan, that's all we're saying, so
Yeah,
we should get it.
right.
I agree.
All right.
So, you need to make a motion to pay the harbor master $3,000 from the harbor management, or motion to approve payment of those funds to the harbor master from the harbor management fund.
And I will
So
make that
moved.
motion. John will make that.
I thought I'd help you with the motion.
That's what we need to do.
Yes, and the harbor management.
But we should be doing it for all the other
Right.
things we don't know about.
All right.
We need to do it.
Who made the motion?
John,
Who second?
right,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
And should you be interested, these are my thoughts on,
Not yet, you guys can
Okay.
vote now.
Is there a motion in a second?
Oh, sorry. you can go.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed?
Couple other things, we had a huge tree, another tree come down in Indian
I
Town.
heard about that on the car.
Yes, today, like a big tree.
Oh, today, today?
Yeah, today. Previously, we had a tree, big branch come down on a car.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am entering into a consultancy agreement for $2,500. I'm gonna pay for it out of the tree warden's budget. And they're gonna go down Nahantic, Attawanhood, and Uncas. And they're gonna rate the trees. Because we are gonna come to you and ask for an additional tranche of money to take down. We're gonna figure out a price and come to you, and maybe 30, 40 grand, just to get rid of some of these trees. I'm not gonna say they're dangerous, because I don't wanna, go there right now publicly, but they're old and they're dying, and they are falling.
I've heard that from a lot of
They're
people.
falling. And by the way, it's not just there. I mean, someday take a ride down the streets, obviously it's not, you do every day, but it's not, these are the types of things like, I notice now, I mean, I try to, oh gee, that tree is dead, and you see that because we have all these trees that need to come down, and then I get emails from people saying, when are you gonna start planting trees again? Because you've taken so many down. And, there's not that much money for tree planting. So what I wanna do is take a bite out of the apple this year, see if we can get some stability down in Indian Town with the tree situation. In next year's budget, I would hope that the proposed budget would reflect probably as a reasonably significant for that budget increase. And whether it's for planting some trees or taking additional trees down. So we're gonna do that. It's a critical area right now. It's a problem area, and the tree warden recommended it.
One question on the 2,500, is that going to be for somebody to go and look at all the trees in town, or
Just a
just a
No,
special
just that area, just that
Just that
area,
area?
just that area, John. Drive down to Nahantic tomorrow.
Well, I have family down there.
Yeah,
know
I
that.
mean, it's just like one massive tree after another. And there's,
You should look at.
whatever, that's all I can tell you.
They're cutting down a lot of trees besides that, isn't it, CLMP, Eversource? My whole neighborhood's
They're
got trees
trimming
down
a lot
there.
of trees, they're not necessarily cutting them
Well,
down.
let me tell you,
All
they
right,
cut a
they're
whole
cutting
bunch
some
out.
down too, okay, but,
I'm not against it, by the way.
There was another tree in Meadowwood just a couple days ago that went down.
Meadowwood came down, I had a tree about a month ago, not a tree, a massive branch come down at 1 AM on Glen, absolutely right across Glen Drive, knocked out the power. Not even dead, I mean, anyway, so I'm just telling you,
How's your tree?
my tree better be good, John. My
Yeah, if
tree-
that goes over, that's pretty big.
My tree's pretty good as far as I can tell.
The tree in front of this house is the biggest tree.
I've been called the bravest tree, the bravest man in Old Saybrook for living under that tree. It's a big tree. I had that tree cabled and pruned a few years ago, so it's in pretty good shape. East Point had a pre-construction meeting today, East Point over on North, and this is their construction schedule, and it basically,
These are the apartments?
these are, East Point is the 100 apartments, yes, I didn't hear what you said. And they're looking at right after Labor Day, breaking ground, just so you know.
They're gonna have that parking lot done for the state.
They're gonna have that done, yeah.
Oh, is that getting, they have an end date on this, the one the state's putting in
Yeah,
now?
the drop dead date on that was November. They had 8 months from the awarding of contract, which was in March.
Okay.
I haven't looked down there, I assume it's coming along. Today I spent about 3 hours on the Cape. They have a website dispute going on over there, I don't know, with their, I mean, it just took over my whole day. It's a woman they're having trouble, a woman who took over, was their website person, who is like, basically, I don't wanna say she's shutting down their websites, but they're having a problem, and they're having a problem selling tickets as a result. So we're trying to straighten that out. But that just was part of the thing today. Sea level rise, climate adaptation committee is gonna come before you September
Second,
15th. Okay, for a presentation. John, I saw John at the Preserve celebration last Thursday. There were a lot of politicians there. Everyone, I mean, so you had me, the governor, Senator Blumenthal, Speaker of the House Sharkey, Senators Formica, Linares, Jesse McLaughlin, Devin Carney, and there was another rep there that I'm not thinking of right now. And Melissa Schlag from Haddam was down there. She's the first select woman. So, but it was a really nice event.
Yeah, it was very nice.
It was not a short event, but they had a lot of people to thank. It was quite a celebration. I thought they did a great job. A lot of people came too.
Yeah.
A lot of people. The Brownfields assessment, we had a meeting last, Tuesday. Last Thursday, I think we had a meeting, and they are starting their phase 1. Should be done with that in a month, and then they'll be starting phase 2 over the winter. So that is off and rolling. We had the owner of Custom Marine here in this room with us to talk about the phase 1. So, that has been going on, and, other than dealing with a lot of coyote and dog issues, I can't tell, you know, I've been dealing with a lot of coyote complaints and a lot of dog.
The dog issue, the ones that
Yeah.
got loose, right?
Yes. You should have seen the emails that I got last week. It was insane what was going on. But anyway, whatever, that's it. I have nothing else to report. I was hoping to get out of here by 8.
Well, you're close. I have one question. With
Yes.
regard to East Point,
Yes.
and the parking lot, is there someone that is keeping an eyeball on that cemetery and making sure that with all this that's going on around it? And I know I asked before if there was some way to find out that the cemetery
Did it extend?
hasn't
beyond-
really gone beyond where we
Yeah.
think it is before they start all this construction.
Well, they did some archaeological testing to make sure there weren't graves beyond the fence. I went out there a few years ago with a guy, I forget his name, but they used some ground penetrating radar beyond the fence area. So allegedly, no, there's no issues.
That's the WPCA, has it?
Yeah, they have ground penetrating radar, yeah. Is anyone keeping an eye on our cemetery? I would imagine that our guys who mow the lawn out there, if they see something, they should report it. It's a big project,
Right.
and there's gonna be a lot going on down there, a lot. So,
I have 2 questions.
yes, Tom.
When are we gonna have the persons who are over their budget come in and respond to the Board of Finance about why they're over budget and what they're gonna do to prevent it in the future? That's question 1.
Okay.
Question 2 is, I saw the WPCA equipment out in front of the high school a couple weeks ago digging stuff
Yes.
out there. What was that all about?
Okay, why don't you tell me who you want? Why don't you tell me what department heads you want?
Well, when Bob finishes giving us a report, I
Okay.
don't think he's done that yet, about which departments are over budget.
Yeah,
And,
that won't be hard to do, there's not that many departments.
Because we were
so-
waiting for a little time
Okay,
to everybody sending
So,
out bills and getting caught up to date.
maybe October might be a good time.
As long as it's good with Dave.
And with regard to the WPCA digging test holes at the high school, they are looking at they did some at Donnelly's also, and they're looking at the capacity of the Donnelly's and the high school site to determine whether it could support possibly a community system for some of the homes in Indiantown and Parker Beach and Saybrook Manor. No, we went before the Board of Ed for that. I mean, that's not, should be big news, but, we had to get Board of Ed permission. I mean, maybe we didn't, but we did. But that was very little disruption, very little.
I didn't know if the system, at the school system was failing or not. so
It is not.
That's why I have to look
It
at
is
it.
not, no. So that's
Any
why
other
that was there.
questions for Carl?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment? No public comment? My only comment, again, if anyone wants to go to, I don't think we can all go, but if anyone wants to go to the administrators negotiation meeting tomorrow night down the street at 6:30, feel free. If everyone wants to go, please notify me that everyone
So-
wants to go. and I'll
You couldn't get everybody here tonight, I get everybody here tomorrow.
So when you say if you want to go, so it's a negotiation, so you sit at the table?
It's, yeah, well, it's observation. I mean, we don't take part in the
Right.
negotiation.
That's what you went through with the,
Ah. It didn't work out so well.
When is that next meeting? by the way?
Oh, no, we're going to arbitration apparently.
Excellent.
Ridiculous. Anyway, I can't,
All right.
whatever I said that night has now made in his motions, you know, he's quoting me, so I forget the camera's on sometimes, and, so,
Okay.
that didn't work out so well.
Motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Jerry?